Okay, guys, shall we hop over to the Cloudbrew review? Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about from a regulation point of view?
Not at this point.
We'll get to it as we get to it in the
I
coming
mean,
weeks.
yeah, that was just a small section of it, but we're going to zoom in on quite a couple of categories and invite a few people over throughout the season. But that was just the first portion of it. Now, I got a message on E6SA from Faik, and Faik is a new, well, he's got a new juice line out, right? It already sells at a couple of places online. It's pretty much called Cloudbrew. You know, he sent one to all of the guys on the show. You know, what I have seen and what I really like now, I'll just open this up. What I have seen is a lot of mixers, obviously being avid DIYers. Yes, that's when you open it up. Thanks, Rich. Obviously being avid DIYers and then deciding to, create a commercial juice line or a commercial one shot or whatever. They are looking at DIYers for review. And I kind of like that. I like that collaboration. There's always been this thing between commercial juice lines and DIYs, and I don't think that needs to exist. We can coexist quite easily, and this is brilliant. So the packaging. Let's just talk about the packaging a little bit. That's what it looks like. There's a lot going on here. This is the sample pack, so I'm not sure if this sample pack, if this is just for reviewing purposes, or if this is, going to be standing at vape counters. You know what I mean, where you can kind of buy a big batch of samples and then figure out which ones you like of that, and then go for the big juice. So just especially if you're starting out with vaping, if I had something like this selling for $200, I probably would get this first. That would give me a good idea where I wanted to go, because in here, I don't know if everybody can read that, but we've got a berry, so that's what is that? A blueberry and a strawberry, right? And then
It's a berry mix.
Yeah, it's a berry medley or mix. Then cheesecake, then Inferno, which is a cinnamon vape, candy cinnamon. Then you've got Haze Tobacco, which is hazelnut tobacco. Looped, which is a cereal vape. Preach and Applied, which is two menthols. That's peach and apple menthol. Okay, so in my mind, this is normally when I see a juice line come out, I see maybe 3 juices, maybe 2 juices being released in a line, and them having a lot of cohesion. So if you look at some of the mixes like Mr. Hardwick's, or if you look at whoever, if they bring out a juice, it could be cohesion as in specific profiles that was available in the 70s, or it could be cohesion as in these are all menthols, or these are all candies, or these are all tobaccos.
But with all milkshakes.
Yeah. But with this here, there's not a lot of cohesion in this. This is a big line to go to market with.
Yeah, definitely. I think look, like in terms of flavors though, like they've got some really good like bangers, like ones that I do enjoy. Definitely like the banana shake. Like in terms of bananas that I've tasted, commercial or DIY, this is one of my favorite bananas. And I'll say that now, like this is definitely a good banana shake.
So I've broken it down into categories. Sorry to jump the gun there. So I broke it down into candies, cool vapes, creams, and tobacco, right? So do you guys want to start with the candies?
Sure.
So let's kick off with Berry Nice. So here, this is one of my favorites in the line. There's something really magical about the blueberry and strawberry blend with a sweet finish. Nothing peaks though. It's well balanced. I would call this a success. What did you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. This is like top two, along with Banana Shake and Berry Nice. These are my two favorites. I like the candy finish. Like I'm a big fan of candies. Even though it's a fruit, it's got a very like candy-like esque to it, which I really enjoy. And I like it. Like it's almost like those hard sweets, you know, like those red like berry hard sweets. It's close to that.
Yeah.
What I found with this, I'll go over my notes for the entire line at the end, but this is very typical of the line. What I found interesting about this is that there's no tartness at all. If you're going to get tartness in a juice line, it's very often going to come from a berry mix in the juice line. I just get jammy filling, sweet, mellow, jammy filling from this. I think it's a really great filling, but as a bakery nut, what I'm missing here is the pie crust or the, something to just back up that jammy filling. It's like having a spoonful of the inside of a berry pie. I just want that crunchy, flaky, sugary crust on top of it. But as a berry, as a berry mix, it's pretty solid.
The next one I had was Inferno, right? So I tasted this one as soon as I got it because I haven't seen execution of like a candy cinnamon done very well. I'm a big fan of fireballs and hot tamales, which is cinnamon candies and cinnamon gummies. So what I had said, this is not an easy one to crack. I do feel this juice is pretty much there. There's a slight little harshness to it, but I'm very sensitive. My throat's very sensitive. But probably one of the better executions of a cinnamon candy.
Yeah. Look, I'll be dead honest. I don't mind eating fireballs, but vaping it's a different story. But there is something. I'm pretty sure there's an orange in here or something like a. There's an orange note that I get from it, like blood orange, that kind of like mellows it out a bit, which is interesting to put it in to finish the profile. So that's like it's well thought to add something like that in. Not that I would vape it on the regular because it's not something that I prefer to enjoy or prefer to vape.
I go a little bit further than Daniel. I don't eat cinnamon candies, and nor do I vape them. So this is not my profile at all. The problem I have with them, both in real life and in vaping, you got a lot of plumbing at the back of your mouth here, where airways come down from your nose, and you've got your epiglottis and all sorts of things. Any harsh or any fireball cinnamon for me just attacks those nooks and crannies and just burns the hell out of my mouth in real life or in vaping. So I took a few drags of it and I said, that's nice. And then I just drank a lot of cold water. I love my curries, I love my chilies and so on, but for some reason cinnamon I can't eat dentine gum for the same reason. It attacks my throat horrendously. So I would agree with Theo. It's a solid, it's a solid take on it, but it's just not a profile for me.
Okay, then coffee candy. This reminded me of the Twist coffee juice, right? Which was my favorite juice or coffee juice when I started out with. So, I didn't have a pen style vape that I could test this juice in. I think it also is at 70-30, so I don't know if it would work nicely in the pen style. But it really did, remind me of that. And it, that's what initially got me off the Stinkies. And since then, I've been chasing a good, solid coffee profile. And it's just a difficult one. It's just a difficult one to do. Nobody really gets it. This is a sweeter coffee, but in your bigger devices, you might need to add a little bit more cream here, because I'm getting a slight coffee off note, like a burnt coffee off note, on high temperatures on this one. But it's definitely not bad. I can see this going into a good direction, but you would have to mute that burnt roast note somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I ran it on the Pulse, which is a mouth to lung, the limitless Pulse, mouth to lung like pod system, and it works better in there than it does on the big devices. It's definitely more for a mouth to lung than a direct lung inhale. It hides a lot of those notes, but it's also because you don't get a lot of flavor out of those devices, so you get like a very light coffee note then. But it works better in a mouth-to-lung device than what it does on a normal atomizer.
I think this is again my damage, but this juice took me back to the many, many, many recipes of Hick using FA dark bean, which I just couldn't get to work for me. I'm getting that slightly burnt note as Theo notes. And I just can't get past that. I've never found a coffee vape that actually does it for me. And this one is among the better ones, but it's still there. The moment I get that hint of FA dark bean, I can't go further with it.
So you can surely pick it out, hey, Richard.
I don't know if it is dark bean, but I just get that. I vape and I can just feel that burnt note coming, and there it is.
There it is.
You just can't get past it, and it's in every coffee I've ever tried.
It's a lot like FA chocolate. Like you just can't get past that latex note. It's you taste it in anything. Like it's the same with FA dark bean. You can't get past it. Like you taste in anything.
But it like comes at the end, you know what I mean? It's not when you start with the vaping experience. It's sort of at the end, so it's disappointing, I haven't found anything, so that's why I'm interested to try this one in a mouth to lung device. That might mute that flavor, but in a big device, dual coil dripper, you're gonna taste it. So then I wanted to move over to cool vapes, right? So he's got two cool vapes in here, which is applied and preach. Let's start with applied. So the apple is pleasant in the cool vape. However, it's not pushing me enough as a single flavor vape, right? It's almost like the recipe needs some jelly candy or some FA cream fresh just to broaden the profile a little bit. But it's really, it's not bad. It's just, I just hope that this would be a very full apple, but it wasn't really.
Yeah, it's very linear, like in profile. I get the same thing. Like it's not enough to keep me coming back. Let's put it that way. I would have liked to see maybe another fruit in there. Definitely another fruit just to differentiate it, because it's not just an apple mint, which isn't a bad profile, because there isn't actually, if I look on the market, there isn't an apple mint, but I mean, for good reason. It's probably because it's such a linear profile that adding something else in there just to, bring it out or make it shine. For one, like if they mix preach and applied together, I think that would have been a great recipe on its own. If those two were mixed together,
I did that, by dripping applied first and then dripping preach right after it. And, I got this a medley of the two, and it just felt. I think the preach also, but we'll talk about the preach now. I also did a mix between the two. I think I think you're onto some.
Yeah.
I had much the same take on this. Apple on its own isn't that attractive to me. It's not something I'm going to keep coming back to. It needs to have a watermelon or a peach or a strawberry or something in there just to deepen it a bit, and just to expand the profile a little bit, create something new.
Cool. So then on preach, which is this little guy over here. So I actually like the peach in here. The peach, it's a deeper peach. So I think if he uses at a little higher concentrate, right? So that it's, in your face kind of peach vape. I think it, with a little bit of sweetener and maybe WS23 with this peach, that whatever he's put in here, I think you'll have a banger peach cool vape, which is a simple profile, but the peach is a little bit more rich for me than the apple.
Yeah, look, for me, it's a good peach, and I don't get throaty, which is a bonus. It's not a peach I'm very familiar with, so it's not the usual, cap juicy peach and F or TFA peach juicy. It's a really good peach, like in terms of what a peach is. I like it's also candy like, which I prefer. Like I lean towards more candy flavors. So I definitely think like upping the concentration and then adding WS23, I think you're onto something in terms of it going close to like what nasty juice, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, like a Malaysian style, where if you've got a banger peach recipe, which is a nice deep fruit, it's already complex enough. You don't have to give it layers, you know what I mean? Because the peach itself is deep and it's vibrant. So, you just add sweetener and a little bit of WS23, and I think you could have a banger peach out there. It's definitely, this is definitely the better cool vape for me.
Yeah, my question was why have cool vapes? You've got the whole line, which is straight flavors. Then suddenly you get two menthol fruits in the middle, which I suppose is fine. The menthol does have its fans. So if you're going to make a line, it's fair enough to include a menthol in there. But I would just like the peach on its own.
Mm. Yeah, it's also another thing. Enough. Yeah, fair enough. If it's a good peach, you don't even have to put menthol in there. Somebody like me will do that myself. I've bought so much commercial juice, which is just fruits, and then you vape through like 50 ml of it, and then you just like, I need something else now. WS23, there you go. But yeah. I think this peach is good enough. Just worked on a little bit harder. With balancing the percentages out, making it a more in-your-face peach, hopefully at higher percentages, no off notes start peeking out, and if you can do that, you'll have a banger peach.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think just to go on to like the cool vapes, there seems to be like a big craze in South Africa. Like we're leaning towards Malaysian e-liquids at the moment, and it's funny because we seem to have the same vaping style. Like all of a sudden, Malaysian e-liquids are taking over. Everyone wants that ice cold feeling. Everything must be on ice, And I think that's to kind of build on that market or try and get that market to buy the line, because you've got a pretty big line, Most guys will launch with maybe three bottles, and they're not going to need a menthol because they've got like, a 3-bottle line, and maybe we'll do it on ice limited edition later on, where I think they're trying to, get as much market as they possibly can by doing a big line like this.
But then I'd go for the WS23, not the menthol.
Agreed. 100%. WS23 is the only way to go. when it comes to coolants, you know?
This is off topic, but did you guys watch the DIY noted show on coolants?
Not yet.
So there's they had ID10T vape, WS23, and pretty much all like extreme ice, polar ice, all of those things at 5%. And then there's this not a new but a little bit more difficult to source, which is WS5, okay, which is extremely potent. And he vaped that at 5%, and then he had to lie down because it felt like he had cold sores in his mouth, like many of them, and he just needed a break for a while. It was hilarious. Anyway, so let's move on to creams. Banana shake. This was I liked it. The banana is a bit subtle for me, but I think it is a good recipe. I like how the banana and the cream, are nicely balanced together. This really worked well in a dripper.
Yeah, I've given my thoughts on the banana shake earlier, but it's definitely one of my favorite ones. I don't get it so subtle. Like I get a very syrupy banana, that candy, but it's not that what's it, runts flavor that I usually get. It's like a very candy banana. It reminds me a lot of I think Clary Links banana, which is that almost Sterry Stumpy vibe to it.
The thing about the banana shake, which strikes me about the whole line, is the very clear separation, but also the very narrow separation between the top note and the base. For me, the banana reads as a glass of warm sweetened milk with banana candy melted on top of it. I mean, I'm getting that banana first, and then after the banana, I'm getting this rush of warm, sweet dairy. And I think it's a really, really good milk base. And I think it's the same milk base that they used in the loops.
Yeah,
in the looped one. And I think it's a really great milk base, but it's right up there with the banana. They seem to have a design policy, and I've seen this on all their flavors where there's a top note and a base note, that they're that far apart. Some juice companies will give you a very prominent top note with a base way down in the background. Cloudbrew seem to bring the two very much closer together, but there's nevertheless a clear separation. I mean, I'm tasting banana foam on top of a warm sweet milk with this particular flavor. So it's an interesting design ethos that they followed there.
Yeah, I also get that through the recipes. I mean, the next one we can talk about is looped. I like looped. The creamy base with the fruity flakes is an all-time favorite of mine. I vaped a lot of this stuff. A lot. I mean, when cereal vapes was a thing, what I get from this cereal here is I don't get a crunch. It's almost like the milk of the cereal. After the cereal has been in the milk and the cereal has been taken out. So it's sort of like that bowl of milk that you just, drink afterwards. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but, I definitely didn't think that this was a bad execution of looped, of that fruity loop profile.
It's interesting because I watch Chef's Table. I don't know if you guys have Netflix, but the new season, I think it's the first episode they did. It's a lady from MasterChef, but she invented the cereal milks flavor, right? She basically invented like steeping cornflakes in milk, using that to make ice cream, and it became a cereal milks flavor. Okay. Now, what's interesting is how big the craze has gotten around cereal milks, and this, which isn't big in South Africa yet, but this reminds me of a cereal milk as well. It's not so much that you get the crunch. What I do like is I don't get the lemon pledge. A like very upfront. It's a lot more of a Fruit Loops milk
True.
without the lemon, you know.
Are you getting a pledge from it though?
Not at all.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because that was my thing. To me, it's a little bit more lime forward. There's no pledge taste at all. There's none of that sharp chemical lemon note, which is great. You know, any juice that can avoid that pledge note is a winner in my view. But to me, it tastes a little bit more lime forward. And I think again, it goes back to the design ethos where they don't want tartness in any juice. They go for mellow sweetness. So taking that Fruit Loops, that lemon pledge trademark flavor, pulling it way back, mellowing it out with sweetness, and just cutting all that chemical lemon note out of it. That makes it really pleasant to me. I like tartness, but I don't like lemon pledge. So not having it in this juice is a major win.
I also get like a bit of a bubblegum like note to it, which I assume is from the Loops flavors. But I get like when I mean bubblegum, I mean that like blue gum bubblegum, not the kind that we like blue Steri Stumpy bubblegum, Steri Stumpy, that like blue note, you know.
Now, I wonder if that's not a little bit of marshmallow that was used to, mute some of that lemon. Because I also got a fluffiness, you know what I mean? It's a really good milk base. I thoroughly enjoy this milk base of his. So the next one is cheesecake. This is a pretty good cheesecake base. There is a berry note to it, okay, but it's very subtle, okay. I couldn't figure out if it was a strawberry, if it was a raspberry, if it was I don't think it was a cranberry. I might be wrong, but it's so subtle I couldn't actually pick it out. I think the only thing missing here. So this tastes, if you take a cheesecake and you cut off the crust of it and you just take that filling and you just eat that with a teaspoon. That's what this cheesecake tastes like to me. I didn't get a crust on it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's what he was going through for. But if I was him, I might look at this recipe by adding another layer to it, maybe adding a biscuit or adding a crust to it. It could give it some more complexity, but it's not a bad cheesecake.
Yeah, it's a good cheesecake in terms that it tastes like cheesecake, like or cream cheese. What's cream cheese? It's but the cheesecake, right? The base, like the actual cream, or it's cream cheese, is it not? It is cream cheese, right? Yeah. So it tastes like that. Like I get that, and it's very authentic in those terms. But it is missing that like complexity where something like berry mixed with it would have worked well. Where you got that jamminess. You've got the complexity from the cheesecake, and then, like you say, add a bit of a crust to it. And then you've got like a banger cheesecake that I haven't seen on the market, like a proper, would I say 70s cheesecake vibe,
Just even 90s. I mean, I was smashing those things in the 90s.
One of the comments that always comes out when people discuss cookie flavors is that when you taste cap sugar cookie, it's like a cookie that was made in a machine and was never really touched by a human. Whereas FA cookie has that slightly browned edges. It's like a cookie that was maybe a little bit overdone, or, it wasn't baked evenly throughout. And that's why some people prefer the FA cookie. It's got more of that sort of homemade feel to it. And this is what I feel with the cheesecake. It's a spoonful of the cheesecake filling, but what makes cheesecake so appealing is that slightly browned topping and the crust, which is different thicknesses, and maybe one was in, one part got a little bit browned in the oven where the other part didn't. You just need that roughness to break it up a little bit and to push it beyond that. It's got a very homogeneous feel to it. It's a very creamy filling that you've taken a spoonful of out of a bottle type of thing. It doesn't hang together as a cheesecake for me. But that said, it's a spectacular filling. It's a fantastic filling. Just add a rough edge to it with a graham crust, or something that adds a little bit of browning to it, and you're going to have a superb cheesecake. And then add a fruit on top of that, like that berry.
Very, very nice. Yeah.
Make that berry a jammy topping to it, and wow, you've got a superb cheesecake there.
Yeah, and so acetyl, little bit of acetyl in here. Do you think it will work well?
Look, I think it's, instead of going the acetyl route, I would just use FA cookie, which contains the acetyl root, but it will give you the biscuit notes as well. Without adding too much to a recipe. You could use like one flavor to achieve, both results.
That grittiness, yeah. Okay, and then we've got tobacco. I think tobacco is the final one, right? Yeah, tobacco is the final one. So hazed tobacco. This is hazelnut tobacco. Okay, so I'm kind of out on this one. I'm still trying to wrap my head around tobaccos. This is not a profile that I usually chase, so I don't really have much to compare it with. So this wasn't my favorite really of the juice, but I think that's a personal preference thing because I've got nothing to compare it to. What did you guys think?
It's definitely more on the sweeter side. So a lot closer to like RY4. Which I think we've spoken about with each other, but I don't get a very heavy tobacco flavor from it. It's not, if I'm going to compare any tobacco these days, it's going to be, either a Cardinal or it's going to be Rodeo, where Rodeo is on the really bitter side, but it works as tobacco, and Cardinal's on the RY4, but it's, RY4 coffee blend where it's also very tobacco forward. So in terms of a tobacco, I think beginner tobacco, if you're a big tobacco fan, you're probably going to see this as a beginner tobacco. Let's put it that way. It's the sweeter one where, for me, I prefer a more tobacco forward. If I'm going to vape tobacco, I want to know I'm vaping tobacco, where this is very light on the back end, that it's not bad. It's not my favorite in the line. It's definitely not the one that I'm going to, continue vaping. Let's put it that way.
For me, this was the juice that I thought I was going to like the least, because I don't do tobaccos at all. I mean, I started with tobaccos in vaping, and then I just suddenly couldn't stomach it at all. So I was tempted to not even try this one, and then I dripped it, and it instantly became my favorite one of the line. And the reason for that, to me, it's not really even a tobacco. It's a dirtied hazelnut. It's using an RY4 style tobacco to buff out and add complexity to what is a relatively straightforward hazelnut profile. And what I like about that is it's simple, but I keep getting different notes from it when I vape it. And it's because of that dirtiness that the tobacco adds. On the beginner blending show, they had that one round where they had to add Soho, FA Soho to everything. And they got really interesting mixes out of that, because it just adds that extra layer of complexity. And that's what I'm getting with this. This is actually the most complex and interesting flavor of the whole lot to me. And it's because of that dirtiness that the tobacco adds to it. So I really enjoyed this, and I'm going to finish this bottle very, very quickly. And normally I wouldn't vape tobaccos, but if I see something with Soho in, I'll normally add it, because it does add that note that just pushes it in a slightly different direction and adds that complexity to an otherwise quite linear and simple profile. So that was a winner for me, definitely. But it's not, I wouldn't call it a tobacco vape. If you like your tobaccos, this isn't going to do it. But if you don't do tobaccos, and you like nuts and you want something that's a little bit different, this will hit the spot.
Yeah, so what you're saying, Richard, is that you prefer your hazelnuts dirty.
I love my dirty hazelnuts. Most things I like dirty. I mean, there's a disclaimer that comes with that. We're talking vaping here. But, you know, like ID10T's Bananas Foster. Bananas Foster is quite a complex profile. And if it's done really well, it's deep and it's good. But when ID10T added that Soho into it, it just pushed it to a completely different level for me. It really, really works well.